Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great day for a baseball game from Dormition Stadium. I'm Father Andre, and I'm here with my color commentator, Don Gabrook, and welcome to you as we celebrate 2020 Annual General Meeting. So this is a unique experience in a couple of ways this year. The first being that having the meeting up here in the church, scandalous to some people. How can you have a meeting in the church? It seems like it's combining the secular and the sacred. However, I think anything that needs to be said about our parish community, if it's said in the context of this parish, I think that is a sacred moment. So thank you for your understanding in that regard. And the other reality is that probably more than half of the participants today, you are tuning in via Zoom, which of course is a product of the pandemic. We couldn't have too many people in here, but the other reality is that some folks prefer to have the meeting from home. And so thank you for saying yes to that. And it strikes me that perhaps even going forward, once the pandemic has subsided, that the value of Zoom is that it enables us to be able to integrate and to accommodate folks that aren't able to be here present in person. So welcome to you. Welcome to those of you who are here in person. Just a couple of housekeeping issues for today. So those of you who are at home, our IT extraordinaire, Myron Glova, he is monitoring the Zoom. And so if you have something that you want to say, Myron, you can just let us know via chat or some way, shape, or form. And if you have something to say, a question you want to ask, Myron will patch you into the sound system or the speaker we have here at the church, and you can ask your question, and we'll all be able to hear it. And then, of course, via microphone, we'll be able to respond to your question. It might take a little bit longer, so we don't want to rush through things. We want to make sure that we're addressing all the questions that come in today's meeting. Also, if you are having some audio questions or audio issues from home, now is a good time to let us know. We can try and rectify that. Make sure that when it's your turn to speak, that you mute your microphone, and in between, or that you unmute your microphone, but in between, if you could stay on mute, then we won't hear what's happening in your background. So I hope that sets the stage for what we're about today. Now, as we go forward, it's business as usual. Hopefully you received via email, or some of you requested a printed copy of the agenda. So we were able to distribute some of those. And if you don't have a printed copy, you know that if you have a phone or an iPad or a computer at home, you can open the document and split your screen, and you can go through the agenda and any of the reports as we go along here. And so, in fact, one of the advantages of this year's meeting is that we saved a lot of paper. Usually we print a whole bunch of copies and they perhaps go unused. So this way you can use your electronic device and save it as a PDF on your computer, and then you'll be good to go for years to come when you want to look back and recall this incredible moment in the history of our church. So with that being said, if you're at home or if you're here, let's stand and we'll begin with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Christ our God, we give you thanks and praise for the gift of this day. On this Sunday, when we commemorate the Holy Cross, we are thankful and grateful for the gift of yourself, and that you lead the way in showing us how to pick up our crosses and to live our life of faith. We pray for our parish community, for all those who have gathered here today in person or via Zoom, And those who are unable to attend, we ask that you continue to bless our parish with life, vitality, and of course with the gift of your compassion and mercy. We ask you to bless us, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Slava Isusu Christu. So if you have your agenda open, now that we've prayed, my last sort of formal responsibility in terms of beginning things is to select a chairperson and secretary for today's meeting. So I've invited Don Gabruck, our current president, to be our chairperson for today, and he will then identify who will be our secretary. So Mr. Gabruck, thank you.
Thank you, Father. I'd like to appoint Annette to be our recording secretary for today. Thanks, Annette.
Everybody okay with that? Good, because if you weren't, then you'd be doing it yourself. So here we go.
All right, proceeding on with the agenda, number 3. The agenda has been circulated. And can we make a motion to accept the agenda as has been circulated? Okay. Jean, thank you. And it's seconded by Marcy.
No, sorry.
All in favor? Carried. The minutes of last AGM have been circulated. And are there any corrections? Yes. Yes. Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other corrections to the minutes of the last AGM? And if not, can I get a motion to accept last year's minutes? Maureen, seconded by Katrina, right? All in favor? Carried. Number 5, we'll go into Father's comments. Father?
Good, thanks again. Myron, everything good?
Yeah, just one request. If people are asking things from inside the church, if we could repeat what they are saying.
Okay.
For people on Zoom, so they can hear.
Oh, very good. Okay, Don? You'll just repeat the question in your microphone, okay?
Right.
Okay, well, I've hopefully you've had a chance to read my report in the AGM report. And just further to that, as we begin, I want to first of all acknowledge that a lot has happened in this past year. Of course, we all know how the pandemic has impacted our ability to worship, our ability to gather, all sorts of, that's just with respect to this parish community, internally, if you will, but then also externally. It's certainly been a challenge in terms of celebrating Sacrament of the Sick, for example, visiting, visiting individual parishioners. I certainly missed house blessings this coming January, and yet, we tried to be as creative as possible. And I think actually one thing the pandemic has shown me is that we have a great deal of creativity and a great deal of generosity in our parish community. And so I'm grateful for that, where other churches here in Saskatoon or in our eparchy or around the world have, kind of decided just to close the doors and just hold their breath until things improve. I think we've done a really good job here in creatively responding to a very difficult situation. This past year, and I want to acknowledge the fact that we've had some deaths in our community. So I want to acknowledge and to remember Evan Sorstad, Deb's husband, who died a year ago this past January. I want to also remember Shelley Perpelik. Some of you might not have met her. Shelley was a woman who joined the community and not long after was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she died last March. And then, of course, just before Christmas, Frank Carrain, Evelyn's husband, he died. So remembering those three individuals, and we continue to hold them close to our hearts. At the same time, thanks be to God, we've welcomed some new parishioners to the community by way of adults who have registered in the community, or families, individuals and families. What a great blessing that is. We also had a lot of baptisms. So we've also had a lot of new life enter the community. So in this sense, I remember, and I give thanks to God for Clara and Olivia and Vera and Faustina and Scarlett and Simeon and Emma, John and Milana. So some new individuals. I always like those statistics. If we have 3 deaths, if we can have 10 to 12 births, that's a great blessing. So a real sign of hope for our community going forward. So I'll have a chance to speak later, but I just want to welcome everyone once again and thank you all for your continued support and continued creativity to our church community.
Thanks, Father, for that. Likewise, I'd also like to welcome everybody. And I'd like to start by saying a big thanks to Father Andre for his patience, his understanding, and his spiritual guidance, not only for the parishes that he serves in the outlying communities, but he's our compass for our parish, and in guiding us and navigating us through this unique last year and going into this year. And he's done more than a stellar job. So we're fortunate to have him here. We've said that time and time again. And statistically, we've so far quasi survived the storm, and it's because of this gentleman here. So Father, thanks for all your work.
Thank you, Don.
And your guidance. And likewise, I'd like to say a big thanks to all the outgoing board members for all your talents that you've given to the church. And likewise, a welcome to all the incoming board members. And we look forward to your new ideas and your exuberance and sense of enthusiasm that you'll bring forth for 2021 and beyond. So thanks, and we can hardly wait for this new year to begin. Carrying on, number 7 on the agenda is the committee and organizational reports. And I think the way we'll do this is we'll list all the committees that are listed on the agenda, and then we'll get a motion to accept those committee reports at the very end. And if one has a question, it'll just be for clarification of what's in that report rather than general discussion. So I'd like to start with 7A as catechetical committee. And if there are no questions, I'll just continue reading on.
Just as we go, just to comment that both of our chairs from this committee, Jen Clerk and Judith Kurlock, are passing the torch on, if you will. Judith, after more than a decade of involvement with this committee, and Jen with almost as long a commitment to this. And so I really want to thank you, Judith, personally, and Jen, I don't think you're on the call, but just to acknowledge your excellent contributions to this, to these 2 committees. So thanks so much.
Great. 7B is Building and Property Committee, and that entails building and expansion and hall usage likewise. C is Special Events Committee.
Well, just hang on a second, Don.
Okay.
So here again, I want to acknowledge the work that Tim Lalach has done as chair of this committee. And this past year, we sort of had a true committee experience of this, because I know that Julius Turda and James Biblo supported him in this way, and also to acknowledge the help of the Knights of Columbus in cutting the grass, and other individuals who took turns somewhat forcibly to shoveling snow in the winter, and to folks like Elizabeth Stefanishan Alonso, who takes care of the flower beds. So lots of moving parts in building and property as a committee, but everyone pitches in, and it's so grateful to Tim for your leadership in that regard. And now Tim moves on to a different portfolio here on the council, but thanks nonetheless for all your work, guys. Okay, John.
All right, good. Number C is Special Events Committee. D is Sacristan Servers and Eucharistic Ministry Committee. E, Spiritual and Liturgical Committee.
So this committee has been, I'll say, populated for the last, how many years now, Rose, since you took this role? 9 years. So Rose Reisig, for 9 years, has done just an excellent job of overseeing this committee, which includes, and I'll probably forget a few things, but it includes, sort of soft skills like attending to funerals and birth notices and weddings here in the community. And then Rose would send cards to those families, parish families that were affected by those. And so she's just done a great job at that. And then today, in fact, we kept her working right to the end, because this morning she was decorating the cross for this third Sunday of Lent. And the kolachi for All Souls Saturday, and the communion bread. How many times, Rose, you and other folks would bake communion bread and prepare it? So a lot of detail. And Rose, you just did such a great job. I think one way we'll keep you involved is if we ever need willows for Palm Sunday, we'll be coming to your backyard to hack your backyard. Okay, so I appreciate that. So thanks for all your work, Rose.
Thanks. 7F is Extraordinary Eucharistic Ministry.
Just a note about this, of course, like so many of our committees, not a lot to report this year because we've been precluded from being able to engage parishioners, and particularly with respect to, going to visit the sick or take communion. So this is perhaps one ministry we're really looking forward to getting back in the saddle to doing, because I think it's such an important linkage, with this particular worship space, right? When we celebrate the Eucharist, to be able to take it to those who aren't able to come to church. And so I'll look forward to that day when we can resume that.
All right, 7G, Membership Committee.
I just mentioned earlier that, we were blessed. I wish I would have counted how many new members we received this last year. I think we've gained about 10 families. We've lost a few because of moves or whatnot, but and so in this regard, I want to thank Cindy Lalach for her contribution to the membership committee. And then also pre-pandemic, Cindy was extremely helpful to me, volunteering in the office, helping with the bulletin and the like. So Cindy, if you're watching today, thanks so much for all your work.
All right, 7H, Communication Public Relations Committee.
I acknowledge this in my written report. I just want to emphasize and affirm again the how significant this committee was this past year, because in so many ways, this electronic media really kept us together, really kept us connected. And grateful for the members of this committee who really kept us going in that way.
7I, Justice and Peace Committee and By-Parish Refugee Committee.
Sorry to talk so much, but I know this is another point of transition, and want to thank Jana Lalach, who has chaired Justice and Peace Committee and also been connected with our Refugee Committee. And so Jana is moving on to other responsibilities on the council. So thanks, Jana, for all your work in this committee over the years. And I just want to perhaps highlight the fact that, you know, our Christmas giving tree this past year, I think it was probably the most bountiful that we've ever had, and that came in the midst of a pandemic. So I think that speaks to the outreach attitude of our community. So thank you.
Right, continuing along, 7J, UCWLC. Knights of Columbus. And that was the last committee that we'll vocalize here. So at this time, if we can get a motion to accept the committee reports, please. Jean Alonso. And then Judith to second. All in favor? Carried. All right, continue on the agenda. Number 8 is the auditor's report. And to this, I'd like to call up for the treasurer, Mildred Nickel, to come forward and explain the process here.
Slava Isusu Christu.
Slava Navika.
Are we good here, Myron? We're good? Okay. So I have a couple of things to speak to, and we'll just take this in order. So firstly, we'll look at pages 14, 15, and the top of page 16, if you have your report in front of you. I'll speak to page 14 first, just a couple of explanations that might be helpful and avoid confusion. So you will notice that the first, under the list of assets as of December 31st, 2020, the cash assets there of 128,897, these are all rounded up numbers, or just to make them whole numbers, includes our operating account, which is held with the Bank of Montreal, and that's a checking account. It also includes the credit union, which is our capital account. So there are 3 accounts there. There's a savings account, there's a checking account, there's a membership of $5, as all credit unions have. The fourth thing that's held at the credit union is indicated by short-term investments. So that is a term deposit. And what happened in 2020 was we had 2 term deposits. One was redeemable, one was non-redeemable. When both of them matured in April of 2020, the decision was made by our parish council to amalgamate it into a non-redeemable 1-year term for $90,000, which will mature again in April. The $782 there is accrued to the end of December interest. So our interest on that is compounded at 1.5%. So to compare that to what we're getting on our savings account, I believe it's 0.6% or something like that, or 0.06. It's just a ridiculously small number in comparison. So when that term matures in April, then the decision will have to be made what to do with the credit union assets, whether we roll it over again or just keep it into the savings account. So that will be a decision for our incoming parish council. The GST receivable is again from 2020 numbers. So all GST paid is tracked throughout the year. And the application was made in January for the prior year. We get 50% back of GST. It's a smaller number, you can see, than compared to December 2019, but then again, our expenses were lower in 2020 for obvious reasons. The other item there is COVID support receivable. So this number is what we were waiting to receive for periods 5 to 9 for the CEWS, the Canadian Employee Wage Subsidy. And I can speak a little bit to the process that happened with COVID support for 2020. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Ukrainian Catholic Foundation for their grants in total of $3,000 that we received. That was a decision made at the foundation level instead of dispersing money otherwise as requested to assist parishes with expenses for lost income when basically church attendance had decreased and was shut down briefly. Then when the federal government brought in the program for the CEWS, we had to wait for the eparchy to collect information from all churches within the eparchy on their income month by month. So that record keeping started in March of 2020. It's been done on a month by month basis. Every church is to submit their income for the month to the eparchy. They make a collective calculation of loss of income on behalf of all the churches and determine whether churches are eligible to apply for CEWS or not. So it's done by periods, and to the end of 2020, there were 10 periods for 10 months from March to December. We had approval and met eligibility criteria to apply currently up to periods 9. So the receivable here was for periods 5 to 9 because that was still in process as the audit happened. Since then, the application has been made and that money has been received as well. So there's one final period for 2020, it's December, and we're waiting to hear from the eparchial office whether we meet eligibility requirements again to apply for that. That money, between what we got from the foundation and from the federal government support program, has allowed us to supplement Father Andre's income that was lost when he could no longer celebrate liturgies with the district parishes. It also allowed us to get monies that we would have got from district parishes as cost sharing. So that kind of covers the top end of that. You can see there's an accrued liability there of $5,000, and that is in anticipation of the invoice from Kindred Agri Architects for the work that was initiated in 2020 and is ongoing. So that has not been invoiced for work that was initiated in 2020, and that's why it sits on the books. So that pretty much covers page 14, and I can entertain any questions or comments if anybody has any about that first. Okay, if there's nothing there, then we can move on to page 15 and the top of page 16. So you will see that these numbers look a little bit different than when we get to the quarterly reports. It's because this is real-time accounting on the quarterlies as opposed to the auditor's amalgamation of different categories to shorten up the report. You will see under revenues that there's a capital fund amount there. This amount reflects what parishioners, guests, and donors direct to the capital fund. So that amount included directed donations and a memorial donation that was targeted for the capital fund. The other thing I want to point out under revenues is the interest income. So this is from the credit union accounts and the term deposit for 2020. And the COVID subsidies includes that 4641 that was anticipated and we have since received. Then when we get to the expenses, just to categorize these a little bit, there's 2555 that went to outreach. So some of that money went to the charities that we support and so on. So again, the auditor is lumping some of the incomes and expenses that I'm tracking on the quarterly, just to shorten up the reporting. And then the last item under expenses, wages and benefits, also includes Revenue Canada remissions. So that's income tax and so on that is paid when Father receives his payroll. And that amount of total expenses is different than what you see as expenses when we get to page 18. But the difference is the transfer to capital fund, which technically is not an expense, but because it runs through our checking account, you have to be able to say where you put that money. So in total, there was 5,100 and a bit more that went into capital from donations. Any questions or comments about page 15? If there are no questions or comments, I move that we accept the auditor's report as presented and circulated with the AGM report for 2020.
Okay, and seconded by Rose. And all in favor of the auditor's report? Carried.
Okay.
Thanks, Mildred.
Still me, right?
It is, yes.
Okay, so those of you that did have an opportunity to see the AGM report, any questions or comments about my written report that's on page 16? I can entertain your questions now. If there's nothing there, we move on to 17 and 18, which is the quarterly reports. Okay. Now here, the only thing I want to mention is that if you look at the very bottom of page 18, you'll see that there's a quarterly profit or loss. There's an item there that looks like loss, and people might wonder why, if we move that much money into capital, we actually represent a loss. And that difference, that number is the difference between what we carried in our operating account at year end between 2019 and 2020. So that's why it looks like a loss. Otherwise, we had a balanced budget for income and expenses. Everything that came in can be accounted for as an expense. So I have maintained through 2020 at parish council meetings that I feel that our parish is in a very fortunate and solid financial status, because we're still in discernment with regards to whether we go ahead with basement renovation or expansion of the church building proper. We continue to build capital so that when that discernment is final, we have at least some decent funds to start with. The only other thing I want to point out that's not mentioned in my report, well, a couple of things. Really, it was an unusual year, but I'm not surprised, but very pleased that the financial support that has been noted from this parish is extraordinary. I think it's testament to the faith that our parishioners have in maintaining our parish in a solid financial standing. There have been some challenges with getting on board with the federal assistance program for COVID, but that seems to be running very, very smoothly now. And we instituted a couple of things to try and make it a little bit more convenient and easier for people to be financial donors. So at the beginning of 2020, we had 37 parish members who participated in pre-authorized debit or PAD. So those 37 donors In the month of January, we're donating $3,410 a month. So again, that's anticipated income that we know is going to come in unless people opt out of PAD. As of yesterday, in 2021, we have grown to 49 PAD donors. So that's exceptional growth, I would say, in an exceptional year. And I think that the situation really kind of drove that itself. The total for those 49 PAD donors now is $5,725 a month. So that more than covers our utilities. It covers Father Andre's salary, and there's some gravy on top of that, which is really tremendous and makes for much easier budgeting and budget planning. And I think that I owe a great debt of gratitude to all donors who make it easy, really, to keep track of these things, because PAD is pretty much self-driven. There's no real work to it. There is some bank fees to administer PAD, but unlike something like PayPal, which we've moved away from, there is a direct fee with PayPal. And the same thing would happen if we elected to go with donations through credit card, which I personally have a bit of an issue with. I've never really pushed us going to donation with credit card, but there's also an expense that would be incurred by the church for those types of donations. So honestly, the PAD has really been a very positive experience and continues to be so. At this point, I'd also like to send a great thank you to a few people who have helped me along the way, not just members of Parish Council and Father Andre, but in particular, Terry Letwin, who again has agreed to be the auditor for another year. It was a challenging year for him. We had a lot of conversations back and forth because of some of the record keeping with the COVID stuff, but it was all in the right place at the end. Also a big debt of gratitude to Lauren, who was an exceptional mentor to start with, very patient with me, probably explained the same thing multiple times, and eventually I got it. So I might have been a slow learner, but I did catch on. Also to both Neil Smith and then Gord Warona, who took on the tracking of financial donations so that everybody who is a donor gets a tax receipt for charitable donations at year end. So thank you to those people. Last but not least, my young assistant, Roman, who has kindly taken on assisting me with counting in cash donations that have come into the church to minimize involving a lot of extra people with the counting, as would normally happen in I guess what people call normal times. So thank you to Roman. You've really been a tremendous help. And with that, if there are no questions or comments about pages 17 through 19, I would move that, no, what is this? The financial report, treasurer's report, sorry, be accepted as, again, indicated and distributed with the AGM report.
Okay, and then seconded, and sorry, I don't. Carol, thank you very much, Carol. All in favor? Carried. Just like to make mention that Mildred is one of the outgoing executive members, and it's an understatement to say we're going to miss her. I think she's going to miss us, haha, but we're certainly going to miss her diligence and attention to detail. There's never been, the books always balance out to the penny, you know, there's no rounding up or down with Mildred. And Mildred, for all the time that you've spent on these books, and we just want to say a heartfelt thank you for your countless hours. I don't know if you have a log book that would indicate how much time you spent there, but you've done a remarkable job, and thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.
You want me to just stay put? Oh, I guess most of you.
All right, continuing on, the next two parts dealing with number 10 regarding old business, which constitutes a parish expansion project, and number 11, which will be of the nominating committee. I'll turn it over to Jean Alonso, who headed up these two portfolios. So Jean.
Good afternoon, everybody. Bear with me with my glasses here. They fog up a bit, so. So with regard to the old business and the parish expansion project, if you recall from the minutes of the last AGM, there's basically three recommendations that got voted on and passed last year, but due to COVID, not much really happened there. Those three things were the finance committee. So a finance committee was formed. They've had a couple of meetings, but really, I'd say their contribution this year is really helping Mildred with some of the Revenue Canada issues in the background, but really haven't had a chance to engage on the actions that were kind of laid out for them at that time. So on pause because of COVID. The other action that was authorized last year in the spirit of the renovation committee, the notion was that we wanted, before we embark on a physical expansion, we felt it was important that we embarked on a program expansion. And to that end, we wanted to hire another resource to help Father and the committee chairs to organize and get some momentum there. And again, that was paused because of COVID. So the final piece that was tied to the parish expansion project was to get clarity from the city of Saskatoon as to what limitations there are on the footprint of the expansion that we had envisioned. So there's some concept level drawings that had been circulated in the past, and those suggested expansions to the back actually encroach on the setback that the city has in place. So last year, we were authorized to initiate a building permit process with the city with the intent to get some clarification on if we can go into that setback or not. So that did get initiated, but again, slow to make progress because of COVID. So we made our building application for that purpose. That application was denied recently, which is part of the process, which then allows us to make our appeal. So that appeal was filed last week. And I don't have an update on the status of that at this time, but it should be fairly quickly processed. I'd anticipate in the next month or two, it will have been heard, and we'll have some clarity with respect to the footprint that we could entertain in an expansion. So that, in terms of the architectural design piece, once we have that in place, we'll pause, and then we'll let the other aspects of the recommendations from the building committee last year to take hold. Once COVID gets lifted, we'll re-engage the finance committee to see about how what are the things that we want to do as a parish, continue to build the funding to support an expansion if we decide we want to go there. But importantly, give the programming a chance to get some legs under it that we were hoping for last year. That's my update for that piece. Sorry about that. Happy to take any questions. Yes, Deb. Yep, go ahead if you want to use the mic.
Just wondering what the intents are with the expansion program as far as functioning of the church. Like, are we trying to have a better office for Father, or bigger confessional, or fix the kitchen, or what are the goals as far as in the end what the vision is?
Okay, thanks, Deb. So the question for those online and in the audience was just to refresh our memories on what the intent of the expansion was. And I'm not sure, Father, if you want to add to this at all, but basically we wanted to, the topic of expansion started with the notion that we wanted to update the hall. That's how this whole conversation started. It is quite dated. If anyone's been down there, it does need a call it a facelift. But and that's going to cost significant funds as well. So where the conversation went to then is, well, if we're going to do that, why don't we look at expanding, because our community is expanding. At least that's the notion and the impression of that. So the conceptual design contemplated reconfiguring the hall, creating a classroom space. So as you come down the stairs in the hall, would be off to the left, which to situate yourself would be towards the front. So we would excavate and create a classroom area below the front. We would also, what we wanted to do, one of the other projects that have been on the books was to create some sort of a canopy out in the front, because there's no real good place for people to mingle before and after liturgies. So one of the other concepts that came through in the design was to cover the front of the front of the church, so that it creates that space. So where the stairs are, that would be an indoor space now. And then the thought would be to relocate the office down there, and then where the office is today, we would open that up, and that space there would add for confessional space, but more importantly, it'd be a space to expand for added seating when we were having feast days and lots of people that want to be here. Additionally, there'd be some expansion in the choir loft. So that's sort of to foster the parish community, and as well, we wanted to increase space in the back, create some more storage, or the back, the front, behind the sacristy to the back of the church here. And that included a small washroom and some storage, and just better facilities for changing and whatnot for father or visiting clergy, etc. So that, in a nutshell, is what we were sort of the needs requirements that were kind of discerned when we were working with the architect. Sorry, I can go on. I'm sure if does that cover what you were looking for? Okay. Are there any other questions on that? Okay, I think we'll
Good.
move on.
Yep, thanks for that. Yeah, you'll continue on the nominating committee.
Okay, the moment we've all been waiting for. So I'll just kind of go through the procedure a little bit here. We have basically a full roster, which is great, and I just thank everyone for their service that have willingly put their name forward and are going to stand in the various chairs of the committees. For this part of the agenda, though, what we'll do is we'll be voting specifically on the executive members. So on the last page of the report, page 22, you have the list, the roster. So what I'll do, and we have to vote on each one. So what I'll do is I'll call the person's name, and then I have to repeat the question: is there any nominations from the floor? Or online, we'll be monitoring the screen here. If there is, then we'll have to do an actual vote by ballot. Otherwise, we'll do by show of hands. I think we have enough people in the room here that we can go by that. And then we'll carry the nomination. So we'll step through each of the executive positions as we go through that, and we'll go from there. So hopefully that makes sense. So without further ado, obviously parish priest, we don't need to vote on that. Father Andre, thank you again for standing in on our executive and for your leadership. At president, Don Gabrook has agreed to let his name stand for another year. Thanks for your service there, Don, and your leadership. It's much appreciated. So with that, I'll call for nominations. Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? I'm looking online. There's nothing there. Is there any nominations from the floor? With that, can I get a motion? I move nomination cease. Thank you, Marcy. The seconder?
Mildred?
Maureen,
all right,
thank you.
sorry.
And all in favor, Don Gerbrook for president? Carried. Thank you, Don. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so the next position that we have is first vice president, Leanne Shinkrook. She's been on council for a number of years already, and we're always, we like her, we love her enthusiasm. She's brings a lot of energy to the table and great ideas. In fact, the crosses that Father mentioned that this morning's liturgy were Leanne's idea, and I think it was a great one. So with that, I'll ask for nominations from the floor for first vice president. Nominations from the floor, first vice president. And I'm looking on the monitor, not seeing any. Third time. Nominations from the floor. None. Can I have a motion to cease nominations? Mildred, thank you. Seconder. Teresa, the mask is through me. And all in favor? Carried.
Woohoo!
Second vice president, we have Jana Lalach has agreed to take on a different role on council. She's done lots of work on the Justice and Peace file, and we were excited to have her on the executive team. So again, I'll ask for nominations from the floor. Nominations from the floor, looking on the screen. And a third time, nominations from the floor. None. I ask for a motion to cease nominations. Maureen, thank you. A seconder. I'm sorry, Katrina. Thank you, Katrina. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Secretary, Annette Rudick, over here. Thank you again for your service, Annette. You have taken it on and produce excellent records of our meetings, and it's kind of a thankless job, but very much appreciated. So with that, I'll ask for nominations from the floor. Nominations from the floor. I'll look on the screen, nothing here. And last time, any nominations from the floor? None. I'll ask for a motion to cease nominations. Norbert, thank you. A seconder. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Morris, thank you. Morris. All in favor? Carried. And the important position here of treasurer, lots been said about Mildred's support in that role, and I want to echo that. Thank you for your contributions, Mildred. But taking over, and Mildred will be helping Tim learn the ropes. I think they've already been going over things. So Tim Lalach has let his name stand to be treasurer. So with that, I'll ask if there's any other nominations from the floor. Any other nominations from the floor? I'll look on the screen, nothing. Third time, nominations from the floor for treasurer. There are none. Can someone move to cease nominations? Maureen, thank you. Seconder. Mildred, thank you. All in favor? Right on. And I don't think you get to vote on me. I'm past president. Hopefully you don't have to vote on me. So with that, I want to thank you all for participating in the process, and welcome our new executive. I'll just run through who we have for committees here, and then I'll hand it over to you, Don, for a few words.
Yep.
So as has been mentioned a number of times by Father and Don, I want to thank those committee members that are taking on different roles or stepping out of council for their service. It's very much appreciated. It takes I like to make a plug every year at this point to remind people that it's important to take the time and be part of your church community. And it's not a huge burden. You can talk to the people that are there. We meet as council. So the executive will meet every month for about an hour, maybe a bit more than that sometimes, depending on the conversation. And then the committee chairs will meet with council every second month or so, again for about an hour and a half or so. And it's a good way to stay plugged into what's happening in the community and see where you feel like you can contribute your time and talent. And don't be shy. So as I say that to the group here, but also online, it's a great way to get involved with your church and to share in the growth of the community. So if there's one of these files that are of interest to you, please don't hesitate to contact one of these chair people and give them a hand. It'll be very much welcome. So with that, on the audit, we have Terry's agreed to let his name stand for that as well. On the catechetical, we have Carol Zubiak, who's, I'm not sure if everybody knows you, Carol, if you want to put your hand up. Carol Zubiak will be taking on the adult catechetical. Thank you for letting your name stand. We do have one vacancy this year, and that's at the children's catechetical. So if anyone's interested in that, you can please reach out to Father Andre, and he'll give you some guidance there. For the covenant and care, we have John Abramitz. Building and property, Morris. And sorry, Morris, we've never actually met, but maybe just raise your hand for the group for those that don't know Morris. Thank you, Morris, for stepping into that. Myself on renovation committee, but I think this year, once we get through the appeal piece, that'll largely be paused until we get further direction. Hall booking, Gord Warona. Communications, Myron, who's the guy behind the scenes today, for those of you online, making it all happen. At Park Creole Appeal, Myron's going to help out with that as well, because we're going to try and do that with a bit of technology, I think. The membership file, Maureen Krush is going to step in there. Maureen was on our executive last year, and she's hoping to be able to travel sometime once we get out of COVID. So I agreed to step out of the executive, but continue to contribute through the membership file. Treasurer and membership assistant, Gord Verona again. Justice and Peace, Nadia Stadnik. Is Nadia here today? She's on Zoom. Nadia, can you show your face? I don't think I've met you. Oh, there, yeah. Well, welcome, Nadia. I'm sure you'll enjoy the energy that, oh, there you are. Hi, Nadia. You're going to have fun in that file, I'm sure. You got a lot of energy in the parish. Just got to kind of point them in the right direction, and you'll have a lot of people willing to back you up. Sacristans and servers, Mitchell Smith. Eucharistic ministry, Norbert. Social and special events, and hopefully we've got some things we can actually do this year with Carla and Teresa leading those events for us. And spiritual and liturgical, Deb. Maybe just put your hand up, Deb. She's new to the council as well. And as well on the organizations, we have Marcy leading up UCWL, and Daryl Adamko leading up the Knights. And last but not least, Shelley Lord. And I just want to acknowledge Shelley. I should have maybe mentioned that in my previous report. The school, as part of our appeal process for the building expansion, did write a nice letter of support for that, and commenting on how we share resources, and in particular parking, and that's going to carry some weight for us in that appeal process. So there you have it. That is our that is your council for the upcoming year. Thank you, everyone, for letting your name stand. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks. Now, on a side note, I'd like to, I guess, acknowledge and thank Jean for all the work he's done. Obviously, not just on the nominating committee, because a lot of phone calls go out and whatever, but I think we've got a good, tight, energetic, and intelligent team here that's going to tackle any challenges that come up here for 2021 for us. And then likewise, with the renovation side of things, that's been going on for 2+ years and going back and forth with the architect. That's Jean's wheelhouse, and things are progressing in a manner, and we want to thank Jean for all his work that he's done with that. So thanks again, Jean. All right, continue on. Number 12, little statement it says from the president. So looking forward to this year, nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to evolve for us, but all I know is my cup is half full, and I think this pandemic is this tide is receding, and things are going to open up. So day by day, week by week, month by month, there are new announcements of what's happening out there concerning how we can go forward and come into a new sense of what normal will be for us. And I think we can hardly wait until that happens here. There's a lot of stressors associated with all of that. And in a sense, our parish community has been altered and somewhat fractured, but yet, you know what, with the technology we have, with this leader up here that we have, we're still together. And I can hardly wait until these pews are filled back full. The kids are running around and singing and doing their stuff. And the barbecues are on in the back after church, and we can all meet like we used to, and the vitality and the energy and what we're all about will be pretty colorful, and I'll be pretty happy once that day comes. And when is that? I don't know, but we continue to plan as committee members, executive and the committee organizations to foreshadow when things might be happening. We had talked about earlier about hiring a part-time person to help out with the load that Father has, and hopefully, you know, we can see that maybe unfold slowly here as things get opened up because of the pandemic. So 2021, we're optimistic, and I hope things happen sooner than later. So bring it on. All right, continue on number 13 under new business. We've got signing officers for 2021. Did you want to speak to that at all, Father? Or?
We will have with Mildred stepping back and Tim coming forward. We do need a motion from the floor so that we can take to the bank to have a documentation of who our signing officers will be. So if someone could make that motion that our new signing officers will be a combination of myself, Don Gabrook, or our new treasurer, Tim Lalage. So if somebody could move that. Thanks, Mildred.
Seconded by Katrina. All in favor? Carried. Thanks. 2021 operating and capital budgets. Once again, I'd like to call Mildred back up, who's making her way here to stick handle us through the process here for operating and capital budgets for 21.
Bad penny returns. That's a treasurer joke. All righty, so we're looking at pages 20 and 21. You will see for informational purposes that I've included some historic information there from 2019 and 2020. And couple of interesting things happened in 2020, for lack of a better way of putting it, which made budgeting a little bit screwy. But we came out looking really good. Thanks in large part, we surpassed our proposed income because of the COVID relief, as you'll notice there. It's a substantial amount in 2020. One thing that we've heard from the federal government is that the COVID relief will probably be continuing to June. But we know how governments work, so that may change, and I guess we just all wait to find out. We've always been in a traditional position of proposing a balanced budget, so you will see that between the income and the expenses, we're looking at the operating account, and it is presented as a balanced budget. Again, thanks very much to the Finance Council, who we spent about 2 hours looking at the prior budget and the proposed budget, basically line by line. So there was some extensive conversation and some attempts to guess how things will roll out in 2021 activity-wise. Looking at where things are at now in March, we assume that things won't open up much, probably before fall, but there is some anticipation that as programs come back online, that we will actually have some thoughts on budget that can be spent to support those programs. So it's a very modest budget, I think, because the proposed budget is less than what we proposed in 2020, but still in line with that. The things that we are certain about is that utility expenses generally tend to increase, so that's been factored in. Father Andre's salary also is tied to the consumer price index by his contract, so that has been addressed as well by the outgoing parish council. A couple of things of note on the second page. You will see that the rectory windows are addressed as a capital expense. That has been initiated. The windows in the rectory are the original aluminum slider windows, so there are some issues that are starting to crop up with them. Your parish council elected to proceed with replacing those windows. The total amount is $11,391.28, and a deposit has been paid, and I think that the measurement and ordering of windows is underway. The other thing you will notice from this proposed budget is at the very top on page 21, church maintenance and repairs has been budgeted at $7,500, and that's because the emergency exit here on the east side of the church, the concrete pad is sinking, the stairs are leaning into the church, which can cause some exterior damage. And so there is some money budgeted there without knowing what exactly will have to happen, but once building and maintenance gets their feet under them, I think that that will be addressed as far as maintenance. So again, that's budgeted out of operating account instead of capital. So those are sort of the major things anticipated expense-wise from the two accounts looking forward to 2021. And just lastly, again, I do want to acknowledge the Finance Council, and in particular, Paul Olenek, who was very kind with his CPA brain to be in touch when I had to be on top of things that had to do with the federal support programs. He was my go-to with regards to, are these numbers correct? Did I calculate it correctly? And then I basically had to submit all the applications. So thanks, Paul, for your support and assistance in that as well. That being said, any questions about the proposed 2021 budget? Questions, comments? And if not, I move that the proposed 2021 budget for the operating account and the proposed expenditure out of capital is accepted as proposed and distributed in the AGM report.
Okay, and seconded by Katrina, and all in favor? Carried. Thank you once again, Mildred, for that.
Excellent.
Thank you. Okay, continuing on 13C, the annual parochial appeal dates. Do you want to address that, Father?
You know what? They're after Easter. I can't remember the exact dates.
Okay, that's
But
fine.
it's coming. Yeah. So if you don't know what the parochial appeal is, and you might wonder, why do I need to participate in the appeal? Well, on one level, because, it's important for us not to think of ourselves as an island, right? We are part of this parish community, but we're also part of a larger framework, which is the Ukrainian Catholic Eparchy of Saskatoon, which includes all Ukrainian Catholics in Saskatchewan. And so there's a level of extended community with respect to the appeal, but like any organization, and the church is an organization, there are not only expenses, but there's also personnel that help to keep the wheels rolling. And so the appeal is really integral in that regard. And not only that, but the appeal, it's because of the appeal over the last few years that enabled the Ukrainian Catholic Foundation to be able to support our parishes in the first 3 months of COVID, especially with respect to paying for clergy salaries. So please, when you get your information in the mail about the appeal, please discern and prayerfully consider how you want to contribute to the appeal. And any sort of fundraising that happens from the Ukrainian Catholic Foundation. So look forward to that after Easter.
Good. All right, closing things up here. We'll ask for Father to give his closing statement, and then we'll end with the prayer.
Well, great. So thanks everyone once again for your presence, and I hesitate to say, one of these years, I wouldn't mind some fireworks at one of these meetings, because they're generally very peaceful experiences. I hope you're not sleeping at home or here in the church, but I think it's a testament to, our ability to work together. I really think that this community, we all know the challenges of ego when people work together, and my idea is better than this idea. It's not very often that I encounter that in this church community. That's a real blessing. I think that's something to be grateful for, that we can be receptive to the work of the Holy Spirit and how God's Spirit is at work in everyone, not just in me. So that's an important thing as we go forward. Just to further the gratitude that during the nomination list. So Maureen, thanks for your work on our parish executive. As was mentioned, Maureen is going to sort of slide over into our membership portfolio, which will enable her to hopefully travel somewhere warmer next winter, give her a bit of flexibility in that regard. But also, Maureen's got, she'll have a big role to play, because our hope is that in November that we will be able to reactivate our parish pictorial directory. We were on track to have photos taken for that for our parish and then the members of our district parish last March, April. And of course that didn't happen, but we were able to defer that until this coming November. So in as much as there's lots of things to look forward to, I'll see those days, those photo days, as a real sign that things are back, we're back on track with our parish life. So look forward to that, everybody, in November. And just to reiterate the gratitude to you, Mildred, for your great work as treasurer, your diligence in your work as treasurer, especially during the pandemic. lots of occasions when we weren't able to activate our regular counters because of course we're not supposed to be too close together, and so lots of times Mildred would be burning the midnight oil to get the work done. So thanks, Mildred, for all your great work. And we know that we engage you next year at this time. Okay, just be warned. Also want to thank our organizations, our Women's League and the Knights of Columbus. Just so you know, our Women's League, according to protocols, have entered into preparing Easter foods. And so over the next week or so, there'll be some details about how you can order that. We're going to use the same procedure that we did last year, where you sort of pre-order and then there'll be a delivery or a pickup date for you to come and retrieve that. So thanks for all your work, ladies, in that regard. And to our Knights of Columbus, one note, and I think I had in my written report, is a gratitude for our Knights for stepping up and being our primary ushers for several months, welcoming people into the church and making sure that they were not sick. And so thanks to Norbert particularly for his leadership in that regard. So lots of things to be thankful for and lots of things to look forward to. And in a particular way, welcome to the new members of our community who and our parish community who will help to make that happen. Before we conclude the meeting, as has become our custom, those of you who are on the Zoom call and will be now continue on our council or as a committee chairperson, I ask you to stay on the call. And those of you here in the church who will be taking on a portfolio or continuing your portfolio, please stay in the church. We can have just a really brief conversation about our parish council experience. So if you'd be so kind to do that. Otherwise, does anybody have any questions for me that perhaps hasn't been addressed in the meeting here today? None in the chat? Okay, well, thank you everyone once again. Thank you. Okay.
Are we going to close with the prayer, Father? Or?
Yeah, I think it's fitting that I mentioned at the outset that we're sad to lose 3 members of our community, this particular parish community, Evan, Shelley, and Frank. And so as we conclude, we'll sing for them everlasting memory. Please stand. Eternal rest grant to your servants, Evan, Shelley, and Frank, and make their memory everlasting. Vichnaya pamyat. Vichnaya pamyat. Vichnaya pamyat. Slava Jesu Christu. Have a great day, everyone.